Welcome to the 2-Month Review, the weekly podcast brought to you by Open Learning and 3%, in which we take a book, break it down, section by section, bit by bit, talk about it, analyze it, have fun, make jokes. We are now in season 12, and this season is going to be different than the ones in the past because instead of doing one long book, we're going to do 3 shorter books. The first of which is Cars on Fire by Mónica Ramón Ríos, and that's what we'll be talking about today. The first section of it anyways, that is called Obituary, and that covers the first 62 pages or so. I'm Chad Post from Open Letter Books, joined as always by Brian Wood, author of Joytime Killbox.
Hi, Chad. Thank you for having me on for season 12. I'm glad to be here, and I'm excited, and I cannot wait to talk about these books. I am so excited. I'm really happy to be here.
And we're joined by Christina Rodriguez from Deep Vellum today as well. How are you, Christina?
Good. Thanks for inviting me.
Are you equally thrilled to be on season 12?
So thrilled. So thrilled. This is the first. I've never done this before. You've never asked me, so I'm excited that it's this book.
I know. I asked you first for this because I know that you're a fan. So do you want to tell me about how you came to it and what your feelings are generally?
So Anthony had given me this book a long time ago, and it was on my list because I'm actually Robin Meyers. I'm a big fan of Robin Meyers' translations, so that's kind of what, yes, this will eventually be read. But then I didn't read it until maybe a month or so ago because maybe 2 months ago before quarantine, because I sold it to 2 friends, and they read it, and they were texting me telling me that it needed to be moved up on my list. And so that's how it came up. And I was actually just texting a friend today about it because she just finished it and she wanted to talk about it. So.
Oh, excellent.
Good timing.
Excellent. Well, we'll get into some of these stories and some of the general things. But first, do you want to talk for a minute about how things are going at Deep Vellum and various things? I mean, it used to be how are you making it through the pandemic? And now it's how are you rioting against the police?
Yeah, how are you trying to avoid that?
How are you avoiding bullets?
We're still closed, and then we're in talks of reopening and doing some kind of scheduled appointments with people because our neighborhood is very tourist heavy, and it's where all the bars are, and people are just dying to get into any retail store. They don't actually want to shop or anything like that. They just want to hang out.
Yeah.
So a bunch of people constantly just knocking on the door when I'm shipping things. You have a sign that explains everything. They just want to come in. But then our protest started in downtown, which is very close to where the bookstore is in our neighborhood, and then it moved to Deep Vellum. And we are actually one of the few stores that did not get our windows smashed in. We're on Commerce Street, and our neighboring streets are Elm and our Main Street and Elm Street, and both those streets are all boarded up because they just every bar, every stop, store got their windows busted in, or a sneaker store got their entire store stolen. The entire store is gone.
That happened here too. There's I think it's Goodman Plaza has it's called Kicks and Caps maybe, and it's all baseball. It's all shoes and baseball hats, and that got completely taken out along with the liquor store next door, which is completely.
It's so random. I think they didn't touch the barbecue place because I think that's Texans sanctuary. They're we're gonna leave this barbecue restaurant alone, but the bank that's next to it got smashed and all of the other restaurants. So we're still trying to find different ways to encourage people to give money to different funds. We have, I don't know, Texas is weird because it's really conservative. So I've already gotten some negative emails, and we'll see. Yeah, we'll see. We're very pro-cop. Our neighborhood actually is extremely pro-cop, and it's really
seriously, that's not good. I got blocked by someone by a local media guy on Twitter yesterday because he was trying to advocate for a protest in favor of the police, and I just told him to fuck off, and so I was blocked. But yeah,
I had a friend who messaged me because she saw stuff that we had put up for the bookstore and things on my own personal thing, and she was like, "How can you even say this? My dad," and who was a cop, and I was like, "Yeah, fuck your dad. I'm not I'm not making exceptions." So we're not friends anymore, obviously, because I told her that.
Right on.
So there's that.
That is happening. Anyways, well, are you still doing the call where people can call you and get a book recommended?
Yes. Hotline's open like every day, and lots of texts this week. I did get somebody who emailed me that I sold them 4x4, and they sent me a nice email saying how much they loved it and that they glad they called the hotline.
Great.
Yeah, so Hotline's fun. I think it kind of gets people out of like all of the trash that's going on right now, and they just kind of want to joke around and talk about books and not feel like I'm forcing them to talk about what's going on right now. So.
Yeah, absolutely. What is the number for the hotline?
It's 972-638-7741. And people can text it or call it. It's me that answers. So, or leave a voicemail or something, and I'll call you back. So.
Perfect.
That's awesome.
Perfect. I'll put it in the show notes too, in case anyone missed that part of it, so they can call.
Is it crazy where you guys are? Is it as crazy in Rochester as no?
There was
I don't think so.
Saturday afternoon, there was like a normal protest, and then I saw on Twitter that there's a cop car that had gotten lit on fire, and so I went downtown to see what was going on, and there's like a good sizable group of people all just like standing and chanting and cheering and not doing anything, and then like rows of cops came in like full riot gear and just marched at them, shooting the like pepper balls or rubber bullets, whatever they were using at that point. And this one kid that was like right next to me, it's like literally like a teenager, had thrown a bottle of milk at them and went like 7 feet. It was like the weakest throw I've ever seen. And he started to turn around and they just gunned him down, and he like fell to the ground and got up and was like limping to try and run away. And then the police like pinched everyone in and forced them into like the African-American neighborhood, and let all the looting and stuff happen right there, rather than where everyone was, which is downtown and on East Avenue, which is a place that should get probably destroyed, more or less. I mean, most of those buildings are already empty, but also they're shitty businesses, so they should have left it there, but alas. But then after that, they put in a curfew, and Chloe and I went out after curfew to see if there's anything happening. Nobody was out. And then I found out yesterday that they're having peaceful protest every day at the police lodge, which I did not even know existed.
Well, we haven't boarded up the bookstore because we're still kind of like, we're in the middle of it, but at the same time, people don't make it far enough on our block to get there. But our neighbors who live above the bookstore are like, I saw them on Saturday, and they're like, don't worry, we'll be outside in front of this. And I was like, you don't have to do that. Good to know. I didn't know that you guys carry. That's great. You guys are just above us. Didn't know
you carry. Can I get an 8th? Like, what is that? It's like, yeah, fuck off.
Yeah, otherwise things have settled back down here. It's kind of I mean, we have other weird things, like there's these 2 radio show hosts yesterday that kept saying like that the protesters are acting like the N-word and thugs, and they got,
oh my god,
this morning, thankfully. They're like really trashiest people. But other than that, like everything seems to be back to being like calm. But I think there's a protest scheduled for this Saturday again, and so maybe things will get heated. But the police are like clearly antagonistic this past weekend. It was awful. They're awful people. Fuck them all.
Yeah, we have.
Why would you live in a city where Frederick Douglass is buried, and then like have that on your radio show? You know what I mean? Like, why would you have that on your radio show? Period. But like, you live in this city where Frederick Douglass is buried, you fuck. What is wrong with you? Like, do you not know anything about Rochester, its history, where it came from? Like, people need to go away. Just everybody go away.
They honestly do. Yeah. They're the worst. But anyway, so we should talk about Cars on Fire. So this section actually is 2 sections. The imprecation at the beginning, and then Obituary is, how many stories is it? 7? 5, 6, 7. Yeah, 7 stories that make that up. And then next week we'll be talking about Invocation, and then the third part later. So that's how we split it up for this particular book. But what were your general impressions of this section? You can talk first, Christina, if you have a favorite story or part or a thing that you want to point out.
Well, see, when I'm always on the fence of things, I read it twice, and then my second reading is kind of how I decide if I actually really liked it. So the first round, I was like, this feels a little bit, I'm not sure. I couldn't get into it as much. And then when I reread it again, probably like last week, I I was like, oh no, I actually really do like this. A Christian is probably one of my favorites, as well as what is the last one? Dead Men Don't Rape.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I don't really like using bullshit words like timely because that doesn't. I don't know. It just sounds not genuine. But I think I don't know. I feel like I like any author that can put into words things that I just can't express for myself. So I think that's why I'm so drawn to each one of these stories. Everything is just so, from violence to protests to being marginalized. Everything is very relatable and, quotable, I think.
Yeah. It struck me this time reading it how the student is, like, as you say, very timely with like the riots and getting shot, and like I was like, holy shit, like this is like maybe we should put the story up on the website.
Yeah. Or even like, I think in the writer, it's just like, I think she has a quote that's like, tell me what it feels like to be alive. And I'm like, okay, that's a little too on the nose for me right now.
Yeah, right there. What did you think, Brian, generally?
Yeah, like it just kept striking me how prescient it was. It was a very different reading for me than had I read this any other time in my life, I think. It just felt very close, and I could identify with it more than I would have been able to had we not just had riots and just the outcry and the gathering for justice in a way that we haven't seen in a long time here. It just made it feel very close and very like just real. I kind of immersed into it. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah,
and I think more so than I ever would have had I not read it this week.
Yeah, I can see that. Monica's very like involved in politics and many different ways. Like they were down in Chile during those protests earlier. I guess it was last fall. I don't even know what days are anymore, or this beginning of this year. But yeah, they were down there for that. They're her and her husband is Carlos Labe. That's like when I say they, I mean both of them went down, and they're both very involved in like these same sort of groups. But it's really and her writing is like. Like the topics are very political and very like of the moment, and yet the writing still is like also kind of edgy, but not aggressively so. I think in the way that like I don't know if you've ever read Diamela El Tit. I know that's one of Monica's. She's a fan of her work, anyways. But her writing is also very political and whatnot. But it's much more avant-garde to the point where it's like a little bit harder to understand what's going on or to have that impact for, especially in translation. But for this, I think it like works really, really well.
Yeah, it never felt overdone in any way, where I feel like there's some writers where I feel like when you're talking about such heavy topics like trauma and like protest, it just feels almost as if you've never experienced any of those things in the first place. So it's very much trying to reach an audience.
Mm-hmm.
This felt very natural.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and very global, which is intentional too. Like the stuff about New Jersey, which I assume is like Rutgers, is kind of what the university is, because I know she went to Rutgers, so it seemed to track for me. But then there's the parts that are in Chile. There are parts that are coming that are also in different parts of the U.S. Like it's not bound by that. Like this is Brooklyn or this is Chile or this is whatever. Like the ability to write in different places, I think makes it even more interesting.
Oh, I'm trying to remember, what was there was a wonderful description of New Jersey at the beginning of one of the stories. It was so funny. I'll find it later, but I just laughed out loud when I read it. I should have wrote it down, but I'll find it.
New Jersey. It's like Florida in some sense, but I don't know if that's accurate.
What's that?
I'm fascinated with people from New Jersey because it's just like so other to me. But I'm like, is this Florida? But like next to New York, I can't go.
Is it the head? I can't say much about Jersey. There's someone who listens to this who's a very staunch defender of Jersey, but I feel you. Is it the head that is the beginning that has about the New Jersey suburbs?
It is.
Yeah, but again, to go back to what you were saying about it being global and accessible while still being avant-garde, I really did appreciate that about it, where there's something very like clean and economical in the way she delivers these super heavy, tangled, the vast kind of like emotional weight of the story, and she does it very cleanly and economically because, again, like the subject that she's handling already has so much weight and depth to it. It doesn't need anything else on top of it. I think it's really smart the way she's done this. I was really impressed by that.
Yeah.
Because it could like easily be like heavy-handed or just over the top, and it still has a huge impact while still being just clean and economical the way she's written it.
Agree.
I think when I was first reading it, I think I wanted every story to be longer. I'm like, this could, like, I would read the novel. But then now that you've said that, I'm like, actually, I feel like maybe that is exactly what I needed, to have it be condensed, because anything else would just be too much.
Yeah, it really is. I thought that you would like it, Brian, for that reason, that it is the like clean, direct, not overdone, not trying too hard in any way. Like it seems to fit the sort of things that you talk to your students about.
Yeah, well, like, can you imagine reading like a 20-page Edgar Carrot story? Be like, just give me like 3 or 4, I'm good to go. Right? Like it's just so, it's like, it's a great little, it packs a wonderful wallop. It's a nice punch in and out. And I think she does this so well with this first section, Obituary, because it's like everything is just like heavy shit, right? And just intense. But it's just the right amount of intensity. Like, I mean, it's like getting one of those fancy meals where it's loaded with flavor, but it's only like 3 bites and then it's on to the next one. So you don't overdo it or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, we have a decapitation in here, so yeah, there's already
self-decapitation.
Yeah. That caught me off guard. I wasn't ready, and I had to reread that sentence like 3 times, and then again before we started this, just to make sure that I got that story right. Like,
yeah. One thing I noticed in this that's weird is that at least for the first up through till the patient, and then maybe I lost the thread there, but the other stories all seem to relate to one another. Like there's like a connective tissue of like the writer. What was it? Okay, so the writer, you end it with the funeral. There's a funeral that starts on the next page for Christian. Then what was the next one? Somehow I had them all linked. Like the student is referenced, and then they're in the school, and then it goes to the head, so it's back in the school. Like they're like one little like element of each of the first 4 or 5 stories that like came up almost immediately in the next story, as if it was like sequenced in a very specific way. Which I don't know if it was. I know that there were more stories in the collection originally, and I think there were 1 or 2 that got dropped, but I don't remember reordering anything at any point in time. So but I wouldn't be surprised if she did that in a very intentional manner. But yeah. So you said Christian was your favorite one?
Christian is one of my favorite ones, only because I feel like that would be me at a funeral, like just angry and like, why the fuck am I here? And I hated this person in high school, and I hate them now.
I especially like the reason for hating him, just because it's like this shitty kid on a shitty soap opera.
Yeah, like I would just find any reason. I think I loved that. I loved the connections. I think that's one of my favorites. And then
I feel like I would hate someone for that exact same reason. Like that would be my thing. Like I just don't like that person. Like why? Like reminds me of this kid from a TV show. Terrible idea. I really like the writer though too, as a starting off point. I thought that was that's really interesting to like look back on the writer and like their kind of a writer's career, especially a female writer. I assume it's a female writer for one reason or another. So I must say she. Yeah, female writers who wrote like her. So she, looking back on her career, like a longer career, and seeing the different phases of it, like how it goes from being very angry to being like more like regretful, and then into like more lyrical song type of stuff, and then ending with all those notebooks that are like not to be released. But I thought it was kind of cool to think about. You don't see it that often with like, especially with female writers, to like look back at female writers like movements through their career, and they just tend to get grouped as like one single thing. So I thought that was really interesting, and it was like so subtle, but like it just really struck me this time reading it how much I liked that. Yeah. That's all.
Was it like Kafka, when he died, wanted everything to be like burned, right? And I know there's a few authors that did that, and then like their executor was like, I don't think they really meant that, right?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that was a mistake.
Did you really mean that? He was always kind of moody, right? but I got that kind of like that vibe. I think every any person that's a writer has this, like, at least all the ones I've talked to, they keep like a log of their things, like early works, drafts, whatever, notebooks. And they don't show anybody this stuff, but like there's this hope, I think, in all of us where, well, maybe like it'll be appreciated at some point, because I'm such a genius, just maybe now's not the time. and after I'm gone, they'll find all our napkins, all of the moleskin. Yeah, it'll go in the museum. Yeah.
That gives me anxiety thinking about it, because then I'm like, fuck, are we gonna have more Franzen books after he dies? Like,
no. Whenever he writes burn it now. Burn it before he even finishes.
Or like, are we just gonna have like Nosgard like writing from the grave? Like, I don't like that. Stresses me.
Who was it that it wasn't Salinger, was it? There's someone that died not too long ago where they're like, yeah, there's a bunch of forthcoming like posthumous manuscript. I can't think of who it was. But
Salinger had a few. I watched that documentary thing that came out a few years ago. I think they talk about that.
I don't know. But yeah, that would be that's horrifying.
What do you think is meant by with the writer, with the poem we have at the beginning? And I answer to my name, although I'm someone else by now. So I move in a slender fog, but I still wear the features of my face. And then I answer to my name, although I'm someone else by now. Do you think that's supposed to be representative of the notebooks and the writing, that you could still see who she is, but what do you think is in conversation there with that and the story?
That's what I was going to say, is that it's like you're still you answer to your name, but you are a different person at that time, that you don't remain the same. Like, people aren't fixed as personalities or as a particular type of writing or a particular thing for their whole lives, even if it's recognizable. Maybe. I don't know. I'm stretching. It's poetry, man. It's beyond me. Doesn't even rhyme. I don't know, man. Something. The student one is one we should probably talk about too, because there are so many quotes here for this one of like how relevant this is to our time right now. And so this one's the setup for this is that this mom has come to talk to this professor who's teaching at this seemingly Rutgers, teaching sort of language class, Spanish language class. And her student came to turn in the final paper. There was riots. There's a police kind of takeover of the city and of maybe the country. It's unclear. It's not really expounded upon, but there are like roadblocks, obstacles, people shooting, riots going on. And this kid gets shot through her window. The bullet grazes her, hits him, he dies. And she's now kind of being asked by the mom about like what that final encounter was like, and she's sort of hiding bits of it because like he had a gun that he brought with him that she hid in his backpack. She doesn't want to tell like the whole story, but she does sort of recount it to us, or we get to see like what everything happened with that. And this one really struck me a lot because it really did feel like this part right here. Some spoken support. This is about the students. Some spoke in support of state laws that forbade immigrants from living and working in the area. They even supported militarization as a way to do away with the protests in the city. And I was like, oh boy, like we literally, like I read that after Trump's speech on Monday, and I was like, fuck, like this is very right on. But it gets at that like that divide too. Like I mean, most of my students are all very, very woke, but I can tell like at different points in time, there are ones on the university's campus that are definitely not.
I think I was also just kind of confused with when he pulls out the gun. I was like, is this also a take on like male violence towards, like, is this all like, I don't know, what would have happened? I think I was more stuck in like what would have happened if he didn't get shot through the window.
Yeah, that's very true too. Yeah, God, this one has a great line too. We have a question in a second too. This one has a great line. The students spoke up that day. For them, he explained, freedom was defined by whoever pulled the weapon first. This is very intense.
Yeah.
We watched together as the police continued to disperse the protesters, now with physical force. Like, yeah, the whole thing. Just one man would be judged. So Carlos is asking, what current or past fiction books do we link to Monica's? This is a great question, and I am not sure.
Wait, what is?
Like what past or current books do you link to Cars on Fire?
Oh, ooh, Cockfight.
Oh, I read that.
Yeah, that just came out from Feminist Press. That has like, it's also short stories, and I think the author is from Ecuador, I want to say, and it's just like a very like nuanced take on like male violence, just protest as well, but just being marginalized. I don't know. I just feel like this book, as well as Cockfight, are just done so differently when talking about themes of violence. It's done in a way that I've never seen before. So I would definitely recommend reading both.
Yeah. I think that's at the office, but I don't remember now.
It's a little bit grotesque in a way that's not normal. I feel like most writers don't really take on it. You know, it's implied, but these two books are both very explicit with what they're saying. So.
Right. I was thinking Luisa Valenzuela too. Comes to mind. That might be almost too easy in a way, but she's like a very famous, she's Argentine writer. I don't know. Have you read her before, Christina?
No.
Or Brian? No. She's very, very popular. Yeah, she's very popular and very well, like has a number of books that have been translated, but I think there are more that haven't. But I believe that there's a collection of her fiction that came out like maybe a couple of years ago. But she reminds me of Monica too, and like the directness, the weight of the subjects. But I haven't read Valenzuela in like years. So this is kind of a bit vague. What about you, Brian? Who do you see as
I haven't gone through the collection yet, but I mean, obviously just this first obituary section. I'm trying to think of maybe a more popular, like the early short stories of Schweblin, perhaps, where they're kind of they're dark and they're intense, but they're told with just real clean, just super clean economic, but go into this just really disturbing, dark, grotesque territory, and they just kind of haunt you, and you carry them around with you for a while. And I'm finding that with these stories where they're really hard to let go of after you've read them, and I think that's really high praise for a short story.
Yeah, absolutely.
Flowers of Mold, maybe even too.
That's true. That's not. Yeah, I mean,
completely different style, but it reminds me of a bit of Flowers of Mold in that way.
Yeah, they're both like both writers too have like such a sense of command over the language and over like the impact that images or statements are going to make. So that reminds me of that too of Ha Sung Nan's books. We have a new one that just came out or is about to come out.
Oh, that's fun.
First Wife. Yeah, the copies that we have are all in Chloe's bedroom. But cool. Yeah, the other big story in this section that I think was a real. I mean, they're all really good. The Patient is really interesting. I think The Patient is really interesting. But Dead Men Don't Rape is kind of like a spectacular. That was the one that we read first. I want to say that when we got this, when Robin Myers, who will be on here in a couple of weeks, sent this in, submitted it. I think she submitted 3 stories, and The Patient and Dead Men Don't Rape were 2 of them. And maybe the writer, I can't remember now, because it's been like, probably a couple of years. But I remember reading Dead Men Don't Rape right away and being like, yeah, we should probably do this book. This seems like the right thing to do. Like, it seems pretty great. Which I like that story.
It was super random, but the band L7 came on my radio station as I was reading Dead Man Don't Rape. It was like the perfect soundtrack for just like, fuck yeah, like
hell yeah,
this is it. Just like it worked out perfect. It was a soundtrack for reading that.
This doesn't reference Bikini Kill, does it?
I think. Well, the band that they're talking about is the Gits, right? Is that maybe that's right? Yeah. She was like the lead singer, the drummer, Mia, the one that died.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to say that they played with Bikini Kill. Or like I was Googling them earlier in the day, and there was like some videos up. I forget who they played with, but
interesting.
Yeah.
We'll have to use one of those songs for the opening.
Did you notice too that the connective kind of, I guess, like a through line or theme with these as well, along with male violence, was there was always some sort of kind of like academia offices, some sort of like almost like business and commerce that was intertwined with all of the violence and marginalization.
Yeah, that is very true.
found that-
It's like kind of reflective of the way that all the racism and sexism has been so institutionalized. And there's all those trappings are there, even for someone who's not trying to be part of that system.
Yeah, it comes through obviously like the heaviest with the patient, because I mean, you like literally get money like, here, you're a prostitute, kind of like, well, what's wrong with you? Obviously that story has the heaviest, but then going back and looking at it is kind of, everything is steeped in this idea of like your work, what you do for money, what your purpose is, where's your self-worth, what is your value. It brings up some really, really important questions throughout the stories as well.
Yeah, and I think that's especially relevant in terms of like immigration and immigrants to the US, that's part of the value. Like to even be here, you have to have like, to get your visa and all this stuff saying like how much you're going to be making and where are you going to be employed. Like there's like a real value associated with the put on the person, or cost or value put on the person that's immigrating. And that's kind of crazy. So yeah, it's like subtly woven throughout here. I agree. I hadn't really thought about that, but that's totally true.
I thought the ending dedication.
Well, yeah, oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, no, you're good. Just the ending dedication, was my absolute favorite, of just the last sentence of like, this isn't over. Revenge will be continued. I'm like, this is dope. This book is insanely good.
I forgot that. That's so good. This isn't over. Vengeance is to be continued. Yeah. I love the way that in that one in particular that there are still parts in Spanish.
Yeah, me too.
I've become more and more a fan of that technique for translating it for writing, that like whenever possible to leave things. We have a situation with the book coming up that that's going to be, there's two of them actually, in which that's becoming the case. Both of these ones relate to names though, and not necessarily like the text itself. But this came up with Christina McSweeney when she translates. She translated one of the who is the author? It was Grey Wolf author, and the book, he's like the guy, the main character is like, doing drugs, going to brothels, doing all this crazy stuff, and like he doesn't say fuck, he says frigging all the time, and I was like, this drives me insane. And in the original it's pinche, and I was like, you could have just left it as that. Like we all know what these words mean, and I think that they should be in there, but we have the situation now where people are translating the nicknames of characters in Spanish into nicknames in English, and they just sound really so bad, like really off, and like don't work. I'm trying to get pushed back and like let things be in Spanish and let people figure that out. Like it's not unusual. The one that stands out the most, I can tell a story because we are changing it, is that there's a kid in the Sire book who has a limp. Something's wrong with him, and they call him Crookie. We're not calling a character Crookie. And it's like, no, it's a hard no.
Well, see, it's the same one too. Even when I read, like, if it was to be translated into English, it would just sound cheesy. It just wouldn't sound as powerful. But reading it in Spanish, I'm just like, oh shit, I'm a little scared. Like, I'm a little terrified. And then, I have a big thing. Like, I love when Spanish isn't italicized. I just think that it's really, really weird. So I thought it was seamless.
Yeah. It's all comprehensible. It's not like you can't figure out those words. They're not, it's not like a bunch of false cognates or anything like that. Yeah, it is the gets that they're talking about. So yeah, I'm gonna have to find one of their songs to use on the beginning of this week's podcast. Maybe all of them. Why not?
Yeah, they have all of their all of their albums on Spotify.
Right on.
Yeah.
I just steal all my stuff from YouTube, so. YouTube to MP3, thank you very much for sponsoring this podcast. Brought to you by legally. I don't think anyone even cares anymore. We got in trouble once though. The university's lawyer would be very upset if you heard me say any of that, because I used a picture of a mountain lion for this. Did I tell you guys a story? When we were doing the 2-month review for Ducks Newburyport, I used a picture of a mountain lion for one of the pictures on the website. You have to have like a big picture that's on there for like a week, and then it goes away essentially. But I used it for like that week for that episode, and it was from the AP and from USA Today. And USA Today reran a new story using their same old photograph. And when they did that, they saw that I had used it for the website and fined us. They fined us. They only fined us $50, but they said that they could have fined us up to like $500, and then we had to take it down. And so I got lectured by the university's lawyer about making sure that all songs and everything are like not copyrighted. It's just like, okay, sure, I'll keep on that right now.
I wonder how they found you. That's a more work than.
There's a program. There's a service you can use that like reverse image searches the internet for people who have used it without copyright.
Okay. Did you already pay the fine?
Yeah, I paid the fine. They made me pay it. like USA Today, first of all. It's not even a paper. I don't know.
Did you miss the story?
That person must go home from work just so sad with their life. How was work today? That was the same. I just hassled people all day that didn't really do anything that bad. Like, I'm going to go warm my dinner up and then go sleep on the sofa. Good night.
It could have been the complete opposite, though. He could have been stoked that, like, today's the day I got $50. Like, I
Apple actually listened to me once.
like, finally got one, guys. This is the day.
Oh my God, the lawyer did tell me
it goes two ways. It's either they either go home sad, or it's the person that's like just like douchebag from college that like got another one and like racks it up, $50, baby, put it in the pile, like yeah, shooting guns at his office. Yeah, I got another one. What did you got? I got 5 today. Like yeah, like chewing gum really hardcore.
Oh yes.
It's one of the two. That's the person that works in that job.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I didn't get into the police force, but I can do this now. This is awesome. Just fucking people over. Got him. You throw milk at me, I'm going to shoot you with a rubber bullet in the face. That's for spilling milk. We need to go back full circle to be like the kid threw milk at someone?
Yeah.
Rochester needs Rochester, like what, strawberry milk? Take this. Rochester needs to step its riot game up. Holy cow, dude, that is weak.
For sure. It was all kids.
Throwing milk.
It was like it was crazy. It was a crazy thing to be in the middle of. There was a moment where I was actually like legitimately afraid because I snuck around through this back way to kind of go outside of where the cops were trying to close everyone in. And when I came out this alley, this guy had one of the guns and he just trained it like right on me as I was walking. It's just like, fuck, like, chill out, buddy. I'm walking home.
Did they tear gas anybody?
Yeah. Oh yeah. There's a lot of tear gas. Shitloads of tear gas. Yeah, and the main things that they broke downtown were windows to a bank, and I was like, "Fuck! I wish I could have been here for that. Like, I would do anything to smash up a bank. Like, I hate banks. Like, I'm there for that."
Well, they closed like 3 of our malls, like our multi-million-dollar malls, because they're like, "Oh, we're gonna definitely like these are gonna get broken into."
Yep, that's where all the police force last night was out at the Greece Mall to protect the mall, which I feel should be illegal. I think that they should pass a law that you cannot protect a shopping mall because fuck that. Like, deserve to get looted, and they're not even like. There's like you're gonna get in there and get like a pretzel from Auntie Anne's and maybe like Lord and Taylor. Like, give me a break. Like, there's no stores.
I would attend just for the soft pretzel. Like, I'll let everybody do their thing. I'm gonna be Auntie Anne's.
Yeah. Cool. I would go through the water fountains where everyone throws their pennies and quarters and just gather shit up. Oh my God. Anyways, did we touch on all the stories? I think we
missed
we missed the ghost.
Oh yeah, the ghost, and did we do the patient too?
Oh, for a second, because we talked about the money, which I thought this one was really interesting too. But I didn't know, this was one that I didn't know how to talk about it.
I mean,
well, it was a shift in that it's dialogue heavy compared to the others.
That's true.
I also just like don't know how to talk about Lacan. Like I just don't know if I don't know. That didn't pay attention in college on that one.
Yeah. I've read enough Lacan in my life, but that was a long time ago. My favorite comment that I wrote in the side of this is when it says in the Dead Men Don't Speak, when it's talking about the year 2016, the speech, it says, the administration guarantees men's right to exhibit their impulse, their desire, the most superficial thoughts and the most profound. Hemos dicho, the administration will defend the rights of the Tylers and the Connors. I just put, fuck everyone named Tyler. That's all I wrote. This was later last night.
I don't know though. How do you feel? You have a kind of Chad is a really controversial white name.
Oh, I know, but I was at Chad before there were Chads, which made it like unfortunate. But like, fuck those people too. I don't like being associated with any part of the name. But initially, the problem was like that when I grew up, there were no Chads, and like you can see like the first Chads that show up in like major league sports are like my age. Like Chad Pennington. And there's a Texas, Chad Kruger played for the Rangers. They're all like around my age. Like it was a name that became popular right then. But then the first time it came like weird was during the Florida election, or during the Bush-Gore election, when Florida had all the hanging Chads. And so then that became a joke. And then these assholes and like they're the crazy, what do they call themselves? That group of dudes that say that all the Chads and the Jennies are ruining it so that they can't get laid. What are they? You know what I'm talking about? No?
I don't know.
Brian, you do.
I'm sorry, I got my pages out of order. I didn't hear what you asked.
There's that group of like dudes who are like really aggressive and incels, the incel movement.
Oh.
That they label people as Chads. And that's made it even worse. So yeah, Chad's a shitty name. But it's not as bad as Tyler. Tyler's a really terrible name.
I feel like Tom Green plays a lot of Chad named characters. Or maybe he like that's what I associate it with.
That's really weird. That is unfortunate. So I have to use my middle initial and last name.
No, it's like this. It's the same way that like white ladies named Karen, right, has become the like stand-in for like the person that wants to speak to the manager at Starbucks or something, right? Like that's like a Chad or a Karen. Like when I was in, you didn't want to be a Mark. A Mark was like a bitch ass white kid. Like, what are you, a fucking Mark? Like that used to be the thing, like out in the Bay Area. Like sort of like, hey, let me get some of your soda. You're like, nah, this is, there's only half left. Oh, don't be a fucking Mark. Come on, share. Like, all right. Like, so like names take different meanings at different times. Sometimes you're a Mark, sometimes you're a Chad, or you're a Karen.
Mark is snitch? Is that what we're saying? Like to be a Mark is
what's that?
Like Mark's a snitch? Is that?
Yeah, basically. Like,
I'm always with it.
Mark,
like,
get out of here.
Aaron stuff, but I believe that everyone who's incompetent is a Carol. Every Carol is like everyone who just can't do things. They're like office workers who can never fill out the forms correctly or whatever. They're all Carols.
Although on the flip side of that, I've never met a white girl named Destiny who wouldn't fight you. Like that, like there's that context to it. I think I know like 5 Destinies that would definitely fuck me up if I messed with them.
And they definitely have that.
Yeah, and they're definitely dating a Chad. Like,
amazing. Yeah. So I think the patient was really interesting though too, especially the one line that. This one paragraph I thought was really key. I'm here in search of a place to experiment with this trembling childlike voice of mine, to talk my way into a tone I've never found, to strike the perfect chord in saying what's never been said between two people. Is this a reasonable objective for someone in your line of work? And it makes me feel like that's almost meta in a way with this story. Like, as you said, it's more dialogue based, dialogue heavy. It is just a dialogue essentially. And then versus the other ones. And like it's trying to do something that's slightly different than what's come before. Like a new voice, maybe.
Sorry, I'm trying to find
these are my high level insights today.
I like the part where in that first page on the patient, that's why I started writing. Novels, the best novels, explore the singularity of our perceptions. That sensation, whether it makes us feel part of something or inspires total indifference, is what people are looking for when they open a book.
Yeah, I like that.
Do you find that to be true for the books that you folks read? That singular perception and the sensation that makes you part of something that's different or inspire total indifference?
I mean, at the same time, it kind of reminded me of bookselling in a weird way, because him expressing that, I feel like I do that with customers where like I'll talk about a book and I'll be like, this is the book that taught me how to be. And then they'll follow up like, yeah, but I just want something funny. Like, don't you just read for like, like, like express to you how this book, you know, has impacted my life, and you want like a comedy or something to entertain you. And so that's, that whole dialogue between the two, I'm like, oh, I feel that.
It is in the patient where she says that she reads parts of books, and if it doesn't have the special something, just tosses it aside, right? Or skims the rest of the pages. That isn't that. Okay, I thought that was in there. That really struck me too. And like, I agree with this. Like, I think that that what you're saying, the singularity, is kind of like the voice of things and like the structure of it working together, making something unique that compels me. What's funny with that statement and the thing about reading things and then passing through them is I just read that Dag Solstad book, Professor Anderson's Night. And in that, he complains as a professor that he's like been teaching Ibsen for like 30, 40 years. And he's like, I don't connect with this at all. It's just like, these books might have meant something a long time ago, but my students don't like get any thrill out of this. Nobody's like, ooh, this is life-changing reading Ibsen. He's like, maybe one or two, but then they write some shitty dissertation and like end up teaching Ibsen for 40 years. Like, this isn't good. And there's something, that book's kind of interesting, but there's something to this that that kind of works against that. Like, where like the Ibsen stuff and all that kind of idea of like books that are older and respected in that way are also very staid and like don't have emotional impact in the same way. This book feels very fresh and of the moment, partially because it is. I mean, it's a much newer book, but at the same time, the writing feels like it's easier to connect with certain things like that. So it's just trying to roundabout way talk about like how you connect to different books at different times as well. Sort of like what you're saying about book selling. Mm-hmm. I'm also just babbling. We're gonna have to wrap up soon because I have to go to another meeting. But did you guys have a favorite line from here?
I mean, I have so many things like highlighted in here because I just like thought it was so quotable. But I think I'm still gonna go with my first one that it said, just because that's just tell me what it feels like to be alive, because I feel like that's my mood every day now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Brian?
Just in the, since we're cringing at the word timely, I'll go with this one. We shouted Mia's brother's name and the names of the cops who'd taken away my mother as if we were christening a bullet.
Hell yeah. Mine was right before that.
Great line.
In the 2018 speech, but wars aren't won with peace. Peace isn't the end of war. Which is very apropos too. It also reminded me of I finally caught up I watched Rick and Morty season 3, and the final episode has Rick and Morty in a fight with the president because the president's like, you work for us, you have to do these things. And they're like, fuck you, we don't have to do anything. They're like, you're not even important, you don't even do anything, you're a civil servant. And the president's like, look, I go to peace summits all the time. And they're like, yeah, that really works, we're drowning in peace over here. Perfect. But anyway, so next week Monica will be on with us and we'll be talking about Invocation, the second section of the book. It goes from page 65 to 151. So it's a long section, but since they're all grouped as one, I thought we should try and keep it that way. That's what for the next 2 books as well, things are grouped by parts that they're contained in, with like one exception. But otherwise, we're able to look at it kind of thematically for these, I hope, or whatever. So the next book, so Cars on Fire next week, we'll be covering that. After that will be 4x4 by Sarah Mesa. And after that is the Book of Anna by Carmen Bujosa. And that one will be 5 weeks because there's 5 parts in it. And one of the parts is like 25 pages. So we'll have a weird sort of schedule. But in the midst of all this, I know that you're moving, Brian. So this will be great fun. Right. Anyways, anyone have any final thoughts they want to share?
Only that I'm so sad that we were supposed to host Monica and then literally went into shelter in place. I'm very bummed about it, but glad that you guys are doing this. So
Yeah, I know. Sucks. You should have it for your book club.
I know I've been talking. See, 2 people from my book club have already been reading it right now. So I'm like, do we just need to make this a conversation so you guys can stop texting me? So, but yeah, maybe that's in the plans.
Very cool. Well, thank you both, and I will talk to you both soon.
Awesome. Thanks. Bye, guys.